Good morning. 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 Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning. And how do you do? That's right. Welcome to Free to Hope Conversation with Edwina B. That's me, y'all, known affectionately as Miss Cuckoo for Cocoa Pops. To God be all the glory. I give him the honor, the praise, the hallelujah, the worship, and most importantly, the acknowledgement. Why? You tell me. You tell me why I choose to give him the acknowledgement. Hmm? He woke me up this morning on this brand new, fantastic, marvelous day that I will never, ever, ever, ever see again. For that, I am truly humbled and grateful. And at all of how my God continues to order my steps each and every day that He chooses that I shall rise. Because 34 plus years ago, I cried out to Him to take me out this life now or show me a better way. And He decided that I live for the purpose of getting to know Him, developing a personal relationship with Him so that He can mold, shape, and prepare me to be of service to Him so I can be of service to you. That's why I'm sitting here just as authentic and as transparent as I possibly can be. Suffering from co-occurring disorders and many other things, right? My God, who I didn't have a personal relationship with 34 years ago, but had my knee bowing experience on February the 22nd of 1990, and I haven't looked back since. I only look back to review and to reference things that I needed to learn from, and also to go back and help bring somebody forward so that they too can be, you know the saying, right? To be free from recovery, emerge empowered, to give hope, help others prosper equally, right? And so that's what my organization is called, my nonprofit is called, my podcast is called Free to Hope. Free, 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 free. There are so many definitions of being free, right? However, when my God decided to keep me here on this earth, right? Free from recovery of all things, emerge empowered. But I can't do that. That won't happen unless I learn and apply, implement, dissect spiritual tools, resources, and principles. Yes. And that started with Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step spiritual program, spiritual program, spiritual program within a spiritual fellowship. And from then on, I've been giving spiritual tools, resources, and principles to enhance my spiritual experiences, that create spiritual awakenings, that produces spiritual breakthroughs. From that and those things, I am truly, truly humbled and grateful. Thank you. All right, so let's get to a few updates today. Just a reminder that many of you should already know that a week from Saturday, we will be doing a memorial service for my sister slash niece, Helen Sabrina Hall. And just to let y'all know, I did receive some texts, a couple calls, and some emails asking me to explain the sister slash niece identifications that I give to my sister slash niece Helen. Yes, she for a long time was viewed as our niece. Yes, Helen Sabrina Hall was our niece when she was born January the 16th of 1973. Yes, Helen was our niece, my parents' second, well, my mother's second grandchild, okay? And so years later, we found out that she was really our sister, okay? Yes, my mother birthed Deborah, which is Helen's mother, but my father incested my niece, right? Who I thought was my sister from the time she was 7 to the time she was 21. And God forgave him. Helen forgave him. Deborah forgave him. And my mother forgave him. But out of that interaction, Helen was born and she was known now as my sister slash niece. Okay. So the only reason why I can bring that up today and don't mind, because it's the truth. It's the truth. When you have funerals and when you have weddings and when you have other family events, a lot of secrets come out. A lot of hidden things that were concealed that needed to be revealed, because in all honesty, nobody can heal when there are lies perpetrated by more lies, okay? Now, that the fact that all three of them, yeah, my dad, my mom, my sister Deborah, and my sister slash niece Helen, 4, they're all deceased, right? And so the truth will set you free, will have set me free, and has set them free. So this memorial service is special because Helen was the 11th family member that God prepared me to take care of. Even though Twinbee Brown wasn't my biological family, I viewed him as my godfather, if you will. So Helen was the 11th one of my family members who I taken care of and was able to prepare them for their heavenly transition. Okay, so that's enough of that. Saturday, August the 10th at Canaan Baptist Church from noon to 3:30. It's in Newcastle, Delaware. Please go to rightmortuary.com to see her obituary. Also to see if you desire to send flowers or a donation, or you can send a donation to $free to hope. Okay? The funds will again pay for the remaining balance of her memorial services and repast, as well as dividing whatever extra funds there are to her grandchildren. Okay? So when you give, make sure you give from the heart. Okay? All right. So let's go on to our reading today. All right. Are you excited? I'm excited because we got about 20 minutes, maybe even longer to dissect this baby. Okay. So if you see the topic that's on your screen, it says August the 1st, right? The topic is living it. Living it. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, living it. What comes to your mind when you hear the 2 words with the exclamation mark, living it? Living it. Do you think of living the glamorous life? Do you think of living a spiritual life? Do you think of living life, period? There was 2 shirts. It says, I'm living my best life. And there's another shirt that's entitled, I'm living my blessed life. Living it. What comes to your mind? Now, they were all positive things, but there are some who are living it in negative ways. Some people say by choices of their own. Some people say that's what they willed for themselves. Some people say it's their fault for being in those situations that they put themselves in. But I'm here to let you know that I've experienced both sides of living it and living it. Living it. I'm living it now. But I lived it. I lived it. I'm talking about the world of addiction coupled by mental illness. I lived it. I was living it for a long period of time. But because of these spiritual principles, tools, and resources, I'm living the spiritual life. I'm living it. Yes. And what a difference. Only because of my knee bowing experience, crying out to my God that he take me out this life or show me a better way. After recognizing that I am not who I think I am. After learning, accepting, and applying the serenity prayer for this God that I didn't know, who I love and know now and have a personal relationship with, gives me the wisdom I need to apply spiritual principles, tools, and resources to all earthly matters. All earthly matters. And so because of that, I'm living it. I'm living my heaven here on earth. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, this is the vessel, but no longer to the degree in which they controlled me, those demonic spirits, right? When God said, that's enough, get your hands off my child, Edwina. My mother said the same thing. I didn't carry my children for 6 months, 9 months for you to take them out. Get your hands off my children. Yes. So I know that when God, who created us, knows us, says enough is enough, and he knows when we are ready, yes, the spirit that he placed in this vessel, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. That was on February 22nd of 1990. When I recognized that I was still living on February 23rd of 1990, I became a spiritual student ready for the spiritual teachers to appear. I'm living it. So let's read what the Alcoholics Anonymous Daily Reflection has to say on this topic. Okay, y'all ready? All right, let's go back. Let's see. All righty. Y'all just hold tight. All right, here it is right here. Okay. All right, so it says here, Alcoholics Anonymous Daily Reflections, Living It. Go to AA.org, y'all. Do your own research and get the full implication and the full intent from the author's, right, perspective. The quote taken off of page 83 of the big book, known as our Bible and Alcoholics Anonymous, states, the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. All right? And the person in recovery shares his perspective by saying, when new in the program, I couldn't comprehend living the spiritual aspect of the program. But now that I'm sober, I can't comprehend living without it. Spirituality was what I had been seeking. God, as I understand him, has given me answers to the whys that kept me drinking for 20 years. By living a spiritual life, by asking God for help, I have learned to love, care for, and feel compassion for all my fellow men, and to feel joy in a world where before I felt only fear. Oh, my. Woo! I need a drink. Where's my coffee? Listen, y'all hold on. I need a drink after that reading. Oh, my goodness. Y'all see why I tap into my spiritual tools, resources, and principles on a daily basis, right? And why I know this is a one day at a time program, and that I'm given and we are given the opportunity to be of service to our God, our Creator, so He can prepare us to be of service to our fellow man. Yes. And so it's readings like this, one day at a time, each day, from the daily reflection, and many of you may have other daily readings that are inspirational and spiritual in nature. Okay. And so because of my co-occurring disorder of alcoholism and mental illness, right, my pathway, my destiny was geared towards Alcoholics Anonymous. There are many pathways I've realized and I know, right, to establish that personal relationship with the God of our understanding that will hopefully, and if it's His will, lead us to our destiny, fulfill our purpose in life, and give us our calling. I am living in my purpose. I am living in my calling, and I am truly walking towards my destiny. My steps are divinely ordered. And when I ask myself this one question that's twofold, Edwina, is what you want to say, is what you want to do, is what you, how you want to act, is it going to feed the flesh or is it going to feed the spirit? Yes. So I now am fully aware of when my humanness kicks in, and it may kick in automatically, but guess what? I reverse, I rewind, I hit pause button, stop, say the serenity prayer, change the channel, and remember I have spiritual tools and resources to help me in the moment of despair, of fear, apprehension, difficulties. Yes, Edwina, there are spiritual tools and resources. You have an abundance of them and you're getting more. Use them. And that's what I do. So let's dissect this baby, okay? All right. So the first thing it says here, right? Woo, Lord, I love you. All right. It says here, the spiritual life is not a theory. Let's stop there. The spiritual life is not a theory. Now, when was the first time you heard spiritual? When was the first time you heard religion? When was the first time you heard of God or a higher power or the Creator? When was the first time as a child you can recollect what your parents or others told you about spirituality, religion, right? What the world is about, how to act, what to say, how to behave, okay? And according to the Uiz family, right, with the 5 agreements, they said that this process is called domestication. So I really encourage you all to read the 5 agreements by the Uiz family. Ruiz, Miguel Uiz, Miguel Ruiz, the 5 agreements. Please get that book. That book helped to enhance my spiritual wisdom. And I was introduced to it in a facility where individuals like myself with co-occurring disorders was reading it. And I was attracted to the color of the book, but I also was attracted to the word spiritual. And nothing happens in God's world by mistake, right? So I encourage you to get that book. So, because I was taught that God was a punishing God, I did not hear about spirituality so years later, but I did hear the word religion. I was introduced to church. I was introduced to the Bible at church. I was introduced to church at the church, right? I remember getting prettied up and clothed up, and we went to church on Mother's Day, Easter, and stuff like that, right? So that's what I was taught, and that's what I felt that church was about, and getting dressed up about, and religion was about, okay? Now, it's ironic that through my years of growing up, my view of religion, still not hearing spirituality, was confusing. Yes, was confusing. Uh-huh. And so I say that because it appeared to me that people go to church all dressed up, to dress up, to be beautiful among each other. Um, it was confusing because even though there was a gentleman at the center, the pastor, the preacher, right? And he was speaking from the Bible, and I would notice some people paying attention, some people not paying attention. As children, we definitely didn't pay attention, right? And then I also became confused when I would see and hear about the pastor going to different people's houses, right? The congregation would invite them. The pastor would feed the pastor, and so forth and so on, right? And then I remember distinctly my Aunt Margaret, right? She had a beautiful voice, and she joined the choir at Bright Hope Baptist Church, right? That was the first church we ever went to. And as a singer in the choir, she would, put on her makeup, put on her outfit and everything, and she would get up there in the choir and sing beautifully, right? Hmm. But then I got more confused when I heard by people talking and gossiping that the preacher solicited my Aunt Margaret for other services. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? So they had a special relationship. People said he favored her than the others, and I don't know. I don't know, but I'm just going by what I heard. All right, so enough of that, right? Until I had my own experience about religion. All right. So before I give you my experience about religion, I'm going to share with you that as a child, I had this yearning in my soul, about what this world is all about. So I was craving understanding because of the confusion as a child I was experiencing, right? The drinking, the prostitution, the fighting, the stealing, the manipulating, and all of that stuff. And there was periodic times when we had good times, but guess what? The bad times outweighed the good times. And I was wondering what this world was all about, particularly among my mother and my father. And then to come to find out years later, now I know why my father was so abusive. Okay. So I know I had a yearning. All right. So let me get back to this before I let you know about my religious experience. Okay. So now it says here, right, that the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. Okay. And so that brings to mind, well, what kind of life was I living before spirituality came into my life? Good question, isn't it? What kind of life was I living? How was I living it? Okay. And so we were born into a sinful world. We were born with a sinful nature. So I was living the sinful life. Not understanding none of that. For real, for real. It's amazing how through our journey in life, we are presented with information that we don't understand, don't know anything about. And then sometimes when we ask questions about something, we were told to be quiet, shut up, stay in a child's place. And y'all know the whole 9 yards, right? Okay, so now I know the type of life I was living before I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, so let's dissect what the reader says. Okay, so the reader says, when new in the program, I couldn't comprehend living the spiritual aspect of the program. Let's stop there, right? He says, when new in the program, I couldn't comprehend living the spiritual aspect of the program. Now, that may not make sense to you, but it definitely makes sense to me. Why? Because when we come out of darkness, not knowing we are now walking in the light because of our cry for help, because of that knee-bowing experience, the transformation has not happened and doesn't happen automatically. My ideas, my attitudes, and my behaviors were all still there, but my desire not to live that way anymore, not to think that way and feel that way and behave that way, with that cry underneath that parked car, something did happen, right? And so I'm still in my humanness, if you will. So when I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous, I heard words, I read words, I saw and heard people talking about this, a spiritual program, a spirit, what? Spirits was Casper the Friendly Ghost. Spirits was Boogeyman. You know what I mean? So you get my drift, right? And that's the beauty of evolving, right? Spiritually, from a sinful nature within a sinful world. Okay. And so he goes on to say, I couldn't comprehend living the spiritual aspect of the program. Why? Because he, like I, didn't know anything about it. Just as plain and simple. Couldn't comprehend, could not understand. What? You speak in Chinese to me. What? I don't know. I don't know. You talking about religion? Huh? Are you getting spirituality confused with you? You're talking about religion, aren't you? No, we're not talking about religion. We're talking about spirituality. Okay. I'm like, all right, well, what is that? All right. I remember asking somebody the difference between a soul and the spirit. Are they one and the same and the same in the one? Like a soul and a spirit, right? So what are y'all talking about? So again, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. But the mere fact that I begin to ask showed that I had a desire to understand what I couldn't understand, right? All right. So he goes on to say, right, he couldn't comprehend the spiritual aspect of the program. But now that I'm sober, let me stop there. But now that I'm sober, my first sober day was February the 23rd of 1990. After crying out to this God that I didn't know, heard about, to take me out this life or show me a better way. I was sober that day, right? I didn't drink, I didn't use that day. something had come over me, right? At that time, I didn't know what it was. I knew that I wanted this God who I didn't know to take me out this life now or to show me a better way. That's all I knew. Take me out or show me a better way. The rapes, the beat-ups, the suicide attempts, abusing people, neglecting my children, right? Tricking, had an abortion, committed murder, stepping over dead bodies, robbing dead bodies. Take me out. Take me out now. Or show me a better way. So now that I'm sober, he says, right? He cannot comprehend living without it. So let's read that sentence in its totality. He says, I couldn't comprehend living the spiritual aspect of the world, but now that I'm sober, I can't imagine living without it. Woo, Lord, have mercy, have mercy, have mercy. Your grace and mercy brought me through. I'm living this moment because of you. I want to praise you and thank you too, for it was your grace and your mercy that brought me through. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, and now I see. Being introduced to a 12-step spiritual program within a 12-step fellowship, I began to recognize that there is another way to live. There's a new way to live. There's a spiritual way to live. Well, how? When? Where? I'm glad you asked. And I'm glad I yield. Because in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous is where I found out what spirituality was and is. I thought I was experiencing something when I was high on marijuana, crack, PCP, or psychedelic drugs. I thought I was, No, dummy, you were tripping. You were tripping. Listen, I love recovery, right? I love recovery because the recovery, that spiritual in nature, will set me free and has. So from recovery, I have emerged empowered, and my goal is to give hope to others, help others prosper equally, right? And so now that I'm in a spiritual fellowship offering spiritual principles, tools, and resources, I had the opportunity for the spiritual transformation to take place. Dr. Carl Jung said people with our disease of alcoholism coupled with mental illness need a psychic change. Divine intervention, right? Divine providence, right? The religious field can't help you. The medical field tried and they can't help you. What's left? The spirit, the spirituality of our Creator is the only thing that can relieve us of our alcoholism, our burdens, our frustration. He's spirit. Yes, and that spirit lives within me. Been there the whole time. How else could I be existing, right? Oh man, this thing is deep, right? So anyway, so this person, I concur with him that, right, having had the opportunity to learn the aspect of the spiritual program, now that I'm sober, I can't comprehend living without it. Spirituality was what I had been seeking. Oh my God. Spirituality is what I have been seeking. It goes back to when the student is ready. When we go through the trials and tribulations that are designed to happen, being born into a sinful world with a sinful nature, okay, and our humanness, and these other spirits occupying this vessel and manifest their individual, coupled, many desires using this same vessel. When I stole from my daddy, you listen, my daddy was my daddy. And out of all his children, yes, I looked just like them, wanted to act just like them. I even wanted to be like him. And during my addiction, I stole his money, and you don't mess with Eddie Hall's money. I did. Woo, after being cracked up for over 20 hours and realizing I had no more money, and I knew where his money was, and my intent was to take a little bit of money while he was asleep, but he turned over and I wound up grabbing all the money. And I went and brought some more crack, and I smoked more crack, and I brought some more crack, and I was cracked up. He woke up, put his clothes on, went outside, came back in. Edwina! Edwina! Yes, Daddy. Where's my money? Oh, no. Oh. Shaking like a leaf. He goes upstairs in his room. And it's like 7:00 in the morning, and there's a bar a couple doors down. The guy's outside cleaning and sweeping all the spit up and vomit and all that kind of stuff. I said, I need a drink. He said, Edwina, it's only 7:00. I need a drink. Edwina, listen, I need a drink, please. I need a drink. He said, all right, Edwina. I said, give me a shot of Granddad. No, make it a double, right? Make it a double. And I gulped it down. And I went back in that house, and I went in my daddy's room, and I sat on the opposite side near the bottom of the bed. And whatever courage came up out of me and said, yes, I took your money, and I'll take every penny you got when you pitch your money before me. Yes. And I got up and walked out the room. I said, I'll be back. I came back. And I had brought these clothes and stuff from 22nd Street. And I began to model the outfits I brought with his money. Oh, Daddy, how do you like this? Daddy, how do you like this? He looked at me. I said, I'll be back. I got another outfit. Daddy, how you like this? This time he was laying down with his hands folded, right? I said, I'll be back. I came back the third time. I saw 2 guns on the pillow on each side of him. Oh. And I got in his face. I bent down and said, is one of them for me? I'm not afraid of you anymore, Daddy. Do what you gotta do, Daddy. I'd rather you take me out, Daddy. I'd rather you take me out, Daddy. I'd rather you take me out than somebody out there to take me out. You said you brought me in this life, you'd take me out. And one of those for me, do it, Daddy. Do it. He said, Edwina, you know what you're doing? Yes, take me out. And I walked out. I had to go smoke some more crack. I had to smoke some more crack, yeah. And later on, I found out that he called my mother, and he talked to my mother, and he talked with my mother, and my mother kept saying, Eddie, that's not Edwina. Eddie, that's not Edwina. That's not your child, Edwina. That's the enemy in Edwina. Eddie, if you kill her, you will never get your daughter back. Eddie, you can always get money, but you will never get your daughter back. Don't do it, Eddie. But she took Eddie, don't do it. Don't do it. That's not Edwina. So I understand now that when this vessel is occupied by various spirits, it will command and utilize this vessel to do any and everything that's sometimes just unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay. And so I just needed to share that part with you in terms of I've been seeking spirituality all my life in one way, shape, form, or fashion. Okay. And so he goes on to say, right, God, as I understand him, has given me answers to the whys that kept me drinking for 20 years. Did you hear that? Huh? God, as I understand him, not the religious God that I was taught was a punishing God, not the religious God that people worship and praise, but fight, kill, steal, whatever, right? I found a loving and caring God of my understanding. When I reflect back on my cry, he decided to leave me here to prepare me to be sitting here before you right now, right? So the God of my understanding, if he did that for me, what else can he do for me? And I want it all. So now the God of my understanding has given me answers to the whys that kept me drinking for 20 years. Okay. So let's continue, right? He also says, I got to go to my meeting. By living a spiritual life, let me stop there. By living a spiritual life. Now, by living it, that was what I was delivered from, living that. To living a spiritual life, how, when, what, where? Through spiritual experiences, spiritual awakenings, and spiritual breakthroughs that I learned from the spiritual tools, resources, and principles. They were used to filter out the negativity that I had in my mind, in my spirit, in my soul for years. Until that spirit within me says, I'm done. I'm done. Right? And so when it talks about here, right, I have been given the answers of the whys for 20 years, right? Right? For my drinking. But now, right, by living a spiritual life, by asking for God's help, I have learned to love, care, and feel compassion for all my fellow men, and to feel joy in a world where before I felt only fear. All right, so that's a lot to swallow. So let's dissect that, baby, okay? All right, so I got time. I don't make time. It says here, by living a spiritual life, one, by asking God for help. If he did for me what he did for me underneath that parked car, just by asking for help, help me, help me, help me. If he did that, then he can do anything. If he removed that compulsion and obsession from me, he can do anything. What else can he do? If the remedy is to cry out and ask for help, I'm asking, help me, help me, help me. All right? So, by living a spiritual life, by asking God for help, I have learned to love. How did I do that? How did I learn to love. It was through the spiritual principles, resources, and tools of the Alcoholics Anonymous program. During the fourth step, made a searching and fearless more inventory of ourselves. I was instructed, and I did, to go way, way back to my earliest recollection of where my attitudes, ideas, behaviors, actions, right, were first formulated. And according to the Uwees family, they were all lies. What to say, how to say, what to believe, what not to believe, how to act. Society, man, woman, what, domestication. So aside from, I know my mommy and daddy love me, you know what I mean? You know, to that extent, but I you know what I'm saying? So it was confusing. So I had to go back and recognize what I thought love was, right? Unlearn what I thought love was, to learn what real love is. You got that, right? Okay. And so my experience, my personal relationship with God, my journey, right? My process, it's an individual journey. So by this God that I didn't know kept me here, I wanted to learn more about this God that I didn't know. So through that, I learned that he loves me. He loves me. He loves me. I'm not the bad girl that everybody said I was. I'm not the girl that said God would never forgive me. I'm not the girl that said God didn't like that. God won't do that. But I learned that God loves me. And when I looked at my early recovery and saw how I got through different things by asking for help, applying the little bit of spiritual principles I did learn by praying, because I didn't want to go back underneath that parked car. Hell no. And so something was keeping me here, but there was things that I had to do. I had to open up my mouth. I had to ask for help. I had to read the spiritual literature. I had to go to the spiritual meetings. I had to walk in faith. Yes. So I know that my God loves me, and therefore I have learned to love myself. Yes. Okay. I've learned to love myself, right? So I have learned to love and care for and feel compassion for all my fellow men. Now that is a process. Immediately, my fellow men, women were in the fellowship that was spiritual in nature. I didn't have a problem after learning that we're all in this thing together, right? Wanting to care and feel compassion for them. But when it came to other people, it's still work in progress. But I'm getting there. I'm getting there because I desire to get there. I desire to be totally free, right? And anytime you have weddings and funerals and all that kind of stuff, man, the real you, the domesticated you, me, shows up. And we fail to have compassion and care for family members, for our enemies, and all of that kind of stuff. But it says all our fellow men. All, Edwina. You can't pick and choose. I want you all of them to show care and compassion for all fellow men. Well, I'm making progress. and to feel joy in a world where, you hear that? And to feel joy in a world where before I felt only fear. I got to close on that one. I am living my blessed life. I am joyous, happy, and free. I know that I am helping at least one more person. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I'm living my heaven here on earth. Why? Because of the spiritual tools, resources, and principles that I have learned, still learning, and invite even more to expand, increase my spiritual wisdom, allow me to have more spiritual experiences and spiritual awakenings, to continue to have an unlimited amount of spiritual breakthroughs. I am joyous, happy, and free in spite of what's going on here on this earthly journey. I never know what life is going to deal me with, what cards today. It doesn't matter what life deals me. Ultimately, I know who is the dealer. So when it says wear the world like a loose garment, I understand that a little better now. A little better now. Okay? So, no longer fearful, because my God did not give me the spirit of fear. So to the best of my ability, I practice the fruit of the spirit. And when I recognize my humanness is trying to, he may get me for a second, but no longer the duration I used to allow him to have, with or without my permission. I desire to please my God. I desire to be a servant for him. I desire to be obedient for him. And as long as I ask for help, I will accomplish all those things. I love you. You love me. We are one big old family, with a great big hug and a kiss from me to you. Won't you say you love me too? Are you living it? Are you living it? Or are you living it? Are you living it? Are you living it? Or are you living it? I'm living it. Come join me in living the spiritual way of life. There's nothing on earth like it. But you too can have your spiritual heaven journey here on this earth while we endure life for the purpose of becoming and desiring to get closer to our Creator. If it's God's will that you and I are rejoined tomorrow, I'll be here. And if it's his will, you will be too. If not, I'll see you. Maybe. I don't know. Right now, and I see you and you see me. So let's embrace this moment and never forget it. To God be the glory. Love yous. Love you, love you, love you. It's time for me to go to mommy.